So today I'm going to be doing an unboxing, a revealing, and a reviewing of this Crochet Society Box 47. Now, getting the box today was a huge surprise to me because usually it's been my experience in the last few boxes that I have gotten that it takes at least 4 weeks before I see it. At least from the time that they inform me that things have shipped. I called it the slow boat from China parcel. However, this time I was really surprised. I ran a few errands this morning. I came home and this was sitting on my doorstep. Only about 2 weeks after I was informed that the box had shipped. And maybe even not 2 weeks, maybe not even quite 2 weeks, but 2 weeks we'll say. And that's a huge surprise to me. And that means I am able to surprise you with it a little earlier than usual. Hello, my name is Sig, and this is Essential Crochet, and you are always welcomed here. I like to encourage you to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button if you like the material that you're receiving, and leave a comment or a question if you feel moved to do so. So with all that housekeeping out of the way, let's just go ahead and get started. The thing we have right here is the March 2024 Crochet Society book. They always give us a book. It's a decent book. And they always tell us, or at least that's all the boxes I've seen so far, which have just been a few of them. The book itself runs about 12.50 pounds. 12 pounds 50. And as mentioned before, and I'll mention again for those of you who are unfamiliar with Crochet Society boxes, is they always give you this handy little chart on the back. And what this chart does is it helps you to convert from UK sizes and abbreviations, definitions, to US sizes, abbreviations, definitions. There's not a huge amount of difference, but there is a significant difference in that you really want to pay attention to this if you are from the US and you're wanting to follow this pattern. Next, we have a welcome page from Natasha Emerson. She apparently is the designer of the pattern of our box today. This box is all about celebrating nostalgia through the medium of yarn. There's something so fun about going back even just a few years and thinking about what we were doing then. The box's design takes me back to my school days, especially with a fluffy pen and notebook. I just wish I'd known how to crochet back then. I would have made so many colorful clothes. Natasha has designed 2 fabulously funky little patterns for this box, which I know you're going to love. Her zip pouch is perfect for keeping all your crochet essentials safe, and the project bag is just what you need for crocheting on the go. Both of them are suitable for crocheters of all skill levels and are designed to teach you a couple of new things as you go along. So kick back, pop your favorite 90s cartoon on the TV, and dive into your fab new box. Happy crocheting. So next, let's see what comes in the box itself. So the first thing that we're going to get in this box, they tell us, or have it titled rather, Remarkable Marker. Your bespoke stitch marker is inspired by Natasha's floral designs. And then also hooked on, you embrace the retro trend with this funky crochet hook. So we did receive the stitch marker. And it's a cute stitch marker. For me, it's going to make a great little zipper charm on a sweater or a pouch that I make in the future. And next, the 4mm crochet hook that they have included in this month's pouch. So it has kind of this checkerboard look. Next, they tell us that we have these embroidery flosses. So I have 1 blue embroidery floss and 1 pink embroidery floss. Also, it looks like we're getting a pin that has kind of this yellow pom-pom on it. So it's a gold pin with a yellow pom-pom. And then, of course, a zipper. So they give us a zipper. This will be the zipper for their pouch. Right. Uh-oh. Hopefully I don't break it. It's just your basic zipper. It's not of a particular high quality, but it's okay. It'll work. Next, they give us this pad, and this is a notepad. So this is pretty interesting. This is kind of like to keep tabs on the progress of your work. So to tally rows, take notes, key information about your yarn. Yeah, this pad I actually think can be really helpful. I really like the organization of the various different little spots on the pad that have their own little information when you're working on something. So that's good. Oh, look, and they have it on both sides. So you're not wasting paper. You can work on projects and then use the other side. So that's good. I actually really like this pad a lot. Next, they give us this, they call it a travel tray. Let me see. Let me move this stuff out of the way. Yeah, they call it a travel tray. This fabulous felt tray. It seems kind of like a felt that feels like it's been impregnated with some kind of a plastic, maybe. Anyways, this fabulous felt tray folds flat for easy travel. To assemble, simply thread the elastic through the holes. So here's the elastics. And loop together as shown in the photo. So basically, you just undo the elastic and you can lay this thing out flat. And when you want to use it, you just go ahead and use the elastic to hold your tray in shape. So I guess, all right, that doesn't really do anything for me personally, but you know, okay. So, and it seems to me that that is what the embroidery thread is for. So here they tell you how to do a lazy daisy stitch, and I guess you can use some of this embroidery thread to make these embellishments on the tray itself. So I'm going to move on to the yarn. Oh, but before we do that, they also did something interesting, and I have safety eyes and a safety nose. So aside from that and the stuffing they included, there's obviously an amigurumi option in this book. So let's go check out the patterns that will be available to us to choose from. So first, I think we're going to explore what projects are being made available to us in our box this time around. So the first project they give us is a Care Bear. So this is clearly a licensed item. I'm not sure if the actual design of it gets attributed to a particular designer. I haven't seen anything in the book yet that tells me. But this is a Share Bear. And so this is what, it seems to me, this is what we have the safety eyes for. And then, of course, this has a little stitched nose that you could do, or I suppose you also could use the little safety nose that they included into this kit. And I can see where here some of that embroidery thread will come in handy. However, if you're going to do the face, you're probably going to need some black embroidery thread, unless the black yarn they give us you feel is going to work just fine for the project. So that's something. The next thing that they give us to do, the next design or pattern in the book that we get that we can use our yarn on, is their off the hook bag. Basically, it's a granny square Japanese knot bag style. Now, I have a couple of knot bag styles of my own on this channel in the video tutorials, so I do like a good knot bag. I'm not going to lie. Next, the pouch that is offered to us is this checkered pouch. So this is the one that we would otherwise use the zipper on and could use it as possibly a notions pouch. And then the next set of patterns they give us are patterns for these patches, these basic motifs or appliques. So yeah, I could see you sewing these onto clothing. I could see you gluing it to a magnet for like a refrigerator magnet. You could probably connect it to a ribbon and use it as a topper on a bookmark. These, these little motifs have so many applications. And it might be a great way to use up some of your scrap yarn. So yes, we've got the Care Bear. And it says, Share Bear, celebrate the magic of sharing with Share Bear, one of our favorite Care Bear characters. So we've got that. And then, of course, a better look at the knot bag. They say, off the hook, carry your whips in style with this clever project bag made from granny squares. And then, of course, these little motifs. So they say they love 90s motifs. These quick and easy makes are great for a variety of projects, from clothes patches to coasters to wall art, or even small washcloths. And then last but not least, we have the Chillax pouch. Get into the zone with this simple and satisfying stitch pattern and create a handy pouch for all your essentials. Next, which I thought was nice, it was just kind of like a little surprise gift, which is really kind of fun to get in a box. And I'm not hating on this at all. It is a project book of adorable animals. Basically, they're telling you that we get 52 mix and match pieces to make. So they tell us how the book works. And then they give us different examples of the different types of animals or amigurumis we can make with the information they give us in the book. So if, for example, you chose not to make the Care Bear that's in the pattern book that they gave us with the box, you could certainly use the amigurumi safety eyes and nose components on one of these cute little guys. Because again, I thought that this was a nice little supplemental book gift that they gave. So you can see the different animals. They're not stingy on the amount of animals and possibilities you can make. And then from here, and for copyright reasons, I'm not going to show you, but they give you tips and tricks on how to make the basic heads, how to make the basic arms and the bodies. And you can see that the bodies of these animals are really very similar in many ways, but what makes them different is just the small little details, like maybe a different shaped muzzle. So here we've got this little muzzle for the rabbit, but then we've got the larger round muzzle with a horn and a different color for the rhino. So they're giving you different ideas and perspectives that you can make. So again, this is the same on the unicorn. This is the same head as the rhino and the same kind of snout as the rhino, except we put the horn on the head and that gives us the unicorn. Whereas here for this little red panda, it's the same as the rabbit, except we've used a different color to be more reflective of a red panda. And they've done a little different facial expression, given the little white cheeks and different ears, so we know that this is a red panda. So yeah, that's good. I kind of like that. I find that particularly helpful. So again, this monkey's got the same head as the rhino and the same snout as the rhino, except with a few alterations, a few changes, it's mixed into a monkey. So I think this is fun. I think this is a fun mix and match. I think this is a great little book to help people who are interested in amigurumis, how to switch up and design their own amigurumis using just a few basic techniques and designs and mixing and matching. So that was a nice little value added to this book. So these are the yarns that we are supposed to get. And I got just those yarns. So let's go ahead and explore. So this is a DK weight, 60% cotton, 40% acrylic. Now I was really happy with the cotton yarn that they gave me in the box that had the amigurumi elephant that I made for one of my previous review videos for Crochet Society. And I was really happy with that yarn. That yarn was 100% cotton. So we'll see. We'll see if this yarn works up just as well as that last yarn, because the last yarn, I was very pleasantly surprised with it. This yarn, we'll see. We'll see how this works out. So, but at any rate, so this is the colorway of black, I'm assuming. Oh, they call it Sabrina 21. So do not wash in a washing machine. Lay flat to dry. Do not bleach. You can iron it. They tell you you need to hand wash it, and it can be dry cleaned. They suggest we use a 4mm hook with this yarn, and that is what they gave us, was a 4mm hook. And this ball of yarn is 50 grams. So we got 50 grams of the Sabrina, and then we got 50 grams of the Blossom 37. Oh, we got 50 grams of the Angelica 48. 50 grams of the Clarissa 42. 50 grams of the Topanga 41. And then 50 grams of the Darla 44. So the colors are pretty. They're nice. They're pretty straightforward. The yarn has a nice subtle sheen. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how these things work up. So keep watching, and with the magic of video and editing, I will be back in just a moment to show the project that I chose to make. After a little consideration, I ultimately decided to do a project from the supplemental amigurumi book that was provided in our box, and I chose to do the cat. Now, this was super simple. It was really very much straightforward. The yarns that I received in the box were more than ample to make the piece. The eyes came in handy. So yeah, I mean, I really wasn't interested in making a Care Bear because, well, Care Bears aren't my thing, and they weren't my thing even when I was a kid. Granny squares, well, you know, I'm a little burnt out with granny squares at this point. I know a lot of you out there like them, and I'm not knocking it. I use a granny square stitch pretty frequently for various projects, but you know, I just wasn't going to make another granny square purse. And then the little pouch, I did like the idea that they offered a zipper to make the pouch, you know, more legit, if you will, in order to hold your notions or your tools for crocheting. But I have so many of these things already, I really didn't need another pouch. And the stitch wasn't going to be a new stitch for me either. So I just decided I would make another toy, pick a piece, make a toy, and set it aside. I donate a lot of the toys, or I put them aside and, you know, sell them at a craft fair for not very much, just, you know, just to move them along. I think I enjoy that making and creating process more than I enjoy the collecting process, if that makes sense to any of you. So that's what I did, and as a result, we have this cat, and it did turn out pretty cute. It's like perfect small child size, even, you know, small enough and cute enough to even put in a crib with a smaller baby. In that case, you're either going to want to be super careful about these safety eyes, and you may want to consider doing something different for eyes just because of choking hazards. But otherwise, I'll give you a quick rundown. We'll move on to what I thought of the yarn. So the yarn is that cotton acrylic blend, and the amount of it that I used on this particular project. So I used pretty much every bit of that 50 grams of what they call the Topanga colorway. It's basically this creamy colorway. I used, like I said, right down to pretty much the last inch of that colorway for this particular project. And then as far as this Darla color. Basically, it reminds me of gingerbread. This color was a little less. I used approximately 40 grams of the Darla colorway for this particular project. And so this is pretty much what I have left over, and I'll put it into the scraps. Also, I used the pink embroidery. I used some, not the black yarn that came with this kit, because the black yarn that came with this kit was too heavy of a weight. It was too thick. So I used a lace weight black yarn that I happen to have lying around for the features of the face. You know, the whiskers, mouth, eyelashes. So now, how did I feel about working with this yarn? I didn't like it. For me personally, tactilely speaking, it was kind of grabby. I felt like I was going, like I was developing calluses because it was so rough. And it was just, it has the structure you want, but the drag on my hook was almost obnoxious for me. I didn't like it. I couldn't get a smooth rhythm going. And I felt like it kept dragging on my skin too, like it kept getting hung up. The movement wasn't smooth. There was a lot of friction, and I really disliked that. And because I'm a really kind of a tactile person, certain feels are easier for me to deal with than others. This yarn, in terms of that, I was not feeling at all. I was not happy. And in fact, I was like just wanting this project to be over with, because I wasn't prepared to feel that feeling of, nails on a chalkboard through the entire time that I was building this cat. However, with that said, I have to say I do like the color of this particular yarn, or, this brand of yarn. All the colors I thought were really nice. They have just the slightest bit of a sheen that really brings out the saturated colorway that they used when dyeing the yarn itself. So I really like this gingerbread looking yarn. I love the color of the cream. The other colors that they have, I like those a lot too. They're almost subtle. They're not quite earth tones. I guess you could say in my mind, they're kind of an earth tone with just the barest bit of a sheen. So maybe that's why I found it attractive. Even their brighter colors, I actually liked. Like the green is a little bright for my taste. However, I like the color, and I think it's because it seems to be that more saturated, muted color that actually has a bit of a shine to it. I know it makes better sense in my head, and then it probably doesn't make a lot of sense with me talking about it, but yeah. Anyways, moving on. So now the yarn itself, it wasn't the worst yarn I've used for amigurumi. In fact, I thought it was okay. I thought it was I think pretty good is a strong word for it. I think if I were to rate this yarn on a scale from 1 to 5 in terms of how well I thought it worked for amigurumi projects, I would give it a 3. Now, to be fair, when I made this particular project, I made it using a 4mm hook, but the book recommended that I use a 3mm hook. And that made sense to me, but because the other regular projects of this kit recommended a 4mm hook, I decided to use a 4mm hook just to see how it worked with the yarn they gave us and how that worked up into a fabric. So yeah, I think going smaller would have been the better course of action, because I can still see some holes in this fabric. And I like a tighter fabric than this, but it's not terrible. It's satisfactory. So like I said, I'll give it a 3 out of 5. And that's just on how it worked up. If I had to rate it from a 1 to a 5, according to how I liked working with it, a definite 2. So it's something I'll work with if I have to, or if it's going to provide the fabric that I need. But it's not something I want to work with because it feels so ick for me. I don't like it. I don't like the drag. I don't like the drag on my skin. I don't like the drag on my hook that this yarn gave me. And that's unfortunate because I really like the colorway. All right, so I think that's going to about do it for this box this time around. It certainly has been pretty good in comparison to several of the other boxes that I have gotten. So far, Crochet Society, I've gotten the most abysmal box ever I could have gotten from anyone from them at one point, but the Amigurumi project inside of it, in my opinion, was worked up really nice, and I even actually liked the cotton yarn that was used and given to us in that kit quite a bit, but the rest of it was just abysmal. And then the other ones, they were really hit and miss. Some of it was really good. Some of it was so bad, all I could do was laugh because I couldn't even get mad about it. But this kit, I think all in all, they did pretty good with this kit. They gave us plenty of options to choose from. The yarn, I would have really loved had they given us the cotton yarn that we had received from them in the past that I made the elephant with. That would have been much appreciated. But that's one of the things that I do these kits for, is because I know they're always switching up the yarns, and so it gives me a chance to explore different types of yarns that are being offered up. And so that's all right too. But like I said, it's a shame. I hate the tactility and the drag of this yarn, because there's other things about the yarn that I actually like. So, what are you going to do? I liked the notepad that they gave me for my notes and such, because I'm always taking notes when I'm working on or designing a new project. As usual, their hooks just don't impress me. I know some of you are out there rolling your eyes. Oh, she's going to whine about the hooks again. Well, yes. I don't care for the hooks. And then some of the other stuff, like that little felt tray, some of you out there may like it. I just look at it and say, why? To me, it was just filler in the box. Okay. I mean, if I were 12 or 13, I might have been excited to get it, and I might have, tried my hand at a little bit of embroidery. But as an adult, no, that didn't work for me either. And then the stitch markers, they always do good with the stitch markers. They're always a nice little thing to get in the kits, and so I don't have any complaints about that. And then the pin that they gave us, that was just a fun little pin, and who doesn't need or use a pin? So that was all right. That was pretty much a given. But yeah, so yeah, this box wasn't bad. It was all right overall. So I'll be interested to see what the next box brings us. But until then, I'd like to just thank you for joining me today and going through this box adventure with me and listening to me ramble on, because, I can ramble. But now's the time for me to just say goodbye and wish you a wonderful week. Stay creative and stay safe out there. Have a good week. Bye-bye now.